We have to go to the Chita. So today we're holding in Parshas of Mishpatim. We're holding on chapter 22, verse number 27. Lakim leisekalelian use not a curse as he said over here in English as a judge. You know, a curse a judge. When Nasi ba'am chalisar, neither should curse a prince amongst your nation. Rashi says Lakim leisekalel. There's two interpretations to Elikim over here, because usually Elikim means God. So Elikim leisekalel, Rashi says Hazar lebrichas Hashem. This is a warning. Everything in the Torah, where the Torah has a concept of punishment of if you do something against the Torah gives you a warning. There's always a warning before the actual law, and that's why we have many repetitions in the Torah to tell us that in every law there has to be a warning, hazara. You need like witnesses also. When witnesses see somebody doing something wrong, they have to warn him that he should be punishable by law. They have to give him a warning. But also hazara l'talo dayin. Gemara says this also teaches us that you're not allowed to curse a dayin, not allowed to curse a judge, a rabbi. Your fullness offering and your heave offering you shall not delay. You should give me the firstborn of your sons, I shall be given to God. Now she says, this is automatic. This goes into the obligation that it's incumbent upon you when your produce becomes fully ripe. You have a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah of bikurim, the first fruits, and that's over here. This reference to the first fruits, bikurim. This what's vidimcha and heave offering? What is that? That is truma. This is truma, the first offering from produce which is given to the kohen. So we have the mitzvah of the first fruits you have to bring to the Beis Hamikdash, and to the mitzvah of truma which you have to give to the kohen. The Eini Yedea, see, interesting. Rashi is not embarrassed to say, I don't know. Rashi says the Eini Yedea ma loshin dema. I don't know what that loshin dema. I'm not sure what the loshin dema means, but he says the heaving. So that's what he translates over here, the heaving. Rashi said what it means. You should not delay. You shall not after the secret. You shall not alter the sequence of their separation by delaying what should come first and advancing what should come second. Namely, that the one does not advance truma before bikurim, or tithing before truma. You need to do everything in the right sequence. So you have to give bikurim first. Then the bikurim is the first fruits, and then you have to give truma to the kohen, and then you have to give the tithing to the Levi. So there is a sequence of events, and you're not allowed to do one before the other. The first son you shall give to me. What does that mean? You don't give to the Eibush to your first son. It means to redeem him from the kohen. You have a mitzvah to redeem him from the kohen with 5 slaughter. Now, did he not give the commandment else here? Why does the Torah have to repeat itself? But it's written here to connect it. So you shall do to your cattle and to your sheep, implying just as the firstborn of man is redeemed after 30 days, as it says, and his redemption for a month. Oh, shall redeem him. So that's the pasuk says that redemption happens after 30 days. So too is the firstborn of your cattle, that it needs to be done after 40 days. After 30 days, I'm sorry. So we learned the concept of 30 days, the viability of life, as we know that it's after 30 days of a son, of a child. So too, the cattle, when you the firstborn of your cattle, you have to also give to the Eibishter. If you want to redeem it, you need to redeem it after 30 days. That you shall, if so shall you do to your cattle and to your sheep. 7 days will be with its mother. And the 8th day you can give it to me. You bring as a carbon. This is a warning to the kohen that if he wants to bring a sacrifice early, he may not bring it before 8 days. Yeah, he cannot bring it before the animal's 8 days old, because it lacks the minimum time requirement of 8 days. Maybe you might think this is an obligation on that day. And if so, we render the 8th day to you. You shall give it to me. This is not so. You don't have to give it. That's not so, however, because it says the 8th day. It says, and as it says further, from the 8th day it will be accepted. Thus, as the 8th day mentioned further, it makes it fit from the 8th day on. So does the 8th day mentioned here means to make it fit on the 8th day, but not such obligation to bring as a carbon. I don't have to bring it as a carbon. And this is the meaning. On the 8th day, it's permitted for me to bring it as a carbon. Verse number 30. Anshe kodesh tiyali. You shall be holy people to me, and therefore, basa basada treifa leisechelu. You're not allowed to eat flesh of a thorn that's found in the field. That means an animal. How are we going to go into the law of treifa? Something that we find two expressions in the Torah. Something that's an animal that was not shechted, or an animal that died. Right? An animal that's died. He just died natural death. It's not kosher because it was not shechted, it was not slaughtered. And there's a treifa and there's an avela. The treifa is usually the animal that was sick. The treifa. And the avela is a dead animal. You're not allowed to eat an animal that is not that you shechted even, but it's not kosher because of the sickness of the animal. You found that the animal was sick. And that's where glat comes from. Glat kosher, the word glat, that means after they opened up the animal, they checked the lungs, and it was glat, it was smooth lungs. That's where the whole glat kosher word came from. Glat means smooth. That means the lungs were smooth, and there was no kind of affections and sicknesses of the lung. And that would make it a treifa. You're not allowed to eat it. You have to throw it, so to say, to the dog. You're allowed to give it to a dog. That means a lot of anah. There's certain kinds of things that when it becomes non-kosher, I can't have anah. Like mixing milk and meat together. Once I mix it together by mistake even, I cannot give it to anyone. I have to push it, throw it out. Can't give it to anybody. It's you're not having any kind of pleasure from it. But non-kosher food, non-kosher meat, for example, if I bought by mistake a non-kosher chicken, I can give it to my dog. I can give it to somebody else. I can to a non-Jew self. So I can do that. He's not obligated in eating kosher. Therefore, the Torah says I can throw it to the dog. We'll soon see why Rashi says the Torah tells you can throw it to the dog. That's if you're holy and abstain from losim of eating carrion or mortally injured animals. That's a nevela and a treifa. Nevela is a carrion. It means I find a dead animal, dead kosher animal. I found a cow dead in the side of the road. I can't eat it because it wasn't shechted. It's a kosher animal. Treifa is a injured animal. You are mine and you're not allowed to eat it. Basa basada treifa. That's just it's interesting. The Torah says basada. It's in the field. Treifa and avela is not kosher whether it's in the field or it's in the home. Flesh that is torn in the house is the law the same as in the field. The Torah speaks of the usual occurrence. You find a treifa in the avela. The treifa usually find it in the street or in the field. The location, the animal is usually torn. Similarly, if we found her in the field, you find the same thing. The law is the same for any place where no one is around to rescue a betrothed woman who was violated. The same expression. You found the woman in the field. You violated her in the field. That's usually when it talks in a usual occurrence. It assumes that she cried and she could not find help. Similarly, who will be unclean as a result of a nocturnal emission. Same applies to an emission occurs during the day. It doesn't make a difference whether it's nighttime or daytime. The Torah talks in a usual occurrence. That's a general rule. So don't take the Torah language, that it happened to be in the field, and it doesn't, but if you found a dead cow in your house, that's kosher. The Torah talks the way. Rashi says a Gentile similar to the dog in context, namely that a treifa can be given and sold to him. Or perhaps a dog meant literally that a treifa had to be given to a dog, not to anybody else. Therefore, the Torah states regarding carrion and avela, that an animal that died without a ritual slaughtering an avela or sell it to a Gentile. So we see that Torah uses different words. But in the rest of the right that of kavachayim, at a treifa, we are permitted to gain any type of benefit from it. A treifa could be quite any type of benefit from it. except eating, of course. If so, why did the Torah say the dog? The Torah could have said, just do whatever you want, give it to a non-Jew. Why would you give it to a dog? Because the Holy One, blessed be He, does not withhold the reward of any creature. It says, the children of Israel, not one dog wetted his tongue. When the Jewish people left Israel, like Caleb, no Caleb, the Torah says, no Caleb barked. No dog barked. So the Torah wants to reward dogs throughout history. And if you find that you're not kosher, give it to the dog. Pay the dog what the dog did when you went out of Mitzrayim. No dogs wanted to bite you. So here God rewards dogs throughout history, like but it really doesn't make a difference. The point of the Torah is you're allowed to have hana from it. You can sell it. You can sell non-kosher food. You're allowed to do that. So any kind of hana, pleasure, you're allowed to have. Again, besides eating, the pleasure of eating, you cannot eat an animal, even a kosher animal, that was not slaughtered and that was found to be sick, treifa. So those are the two laws we just learned now, nevela or treifa, which you could find in other parts of the Torah. Continue on chapter 23, number 1. Leisisa shmeya shav. You shall not accept a false report. Al tashis yadcha im rasha. You shouldn't place your hand with a wicked person. Liyais eit chamas, to be a false witness. Now she says, what does that mean? The Targum, uncle is friend, you shall not accept false report. This is a prohibition accepting slander. And for a judge, it dictates that he should not hear a plea of one litigant until the opponent arrives. Because if you're not allowed to hear one guy before the other guy, because you're hearing slander. That's considered, if a judge would hear, a rabbi would hear one side before the other side, he's hearing slander. He has to tell the person wants to come and tell him what's happening, and say, no, I'm not going to hear it until the other person comes. And I don't want to hear just thing. You're not going to talk in front of the other person things that are not true. But here, the other person not here, you'll say things that are untrue. And that's prohibition. So we know the prohibition of talking slander. Here we have the prohibition of hearing slander. That's why Torah tells us that when somebody talks lashon hara, the one who talks and the one who listens are equally culpable, equally did an aveda, because we have two psukim. We have the pasuk that a person who talks slander, let's say like Rachel, you're not allowed to talk slander, and over here you have the pasuk like Sishma, so you're not allowed to hear the slander. Al tashis yadchem rasha. Rash says, what does it mean? Don't place your hand with a wicked person. This means one who files a false claim against his neighbor, for whom he has promised to be a false witness. Don't be part of a person that's evil. You don't say, "Oh, he's my friend. I'm gonna join with him. I have no choice. He's my friend. I have to support him." Not when it comes to something that is untrue. Verse number 2. You should not follow majority for evil. You shall not respond concerning a lawsuit to follow many to pervert justice. Now she says, there are halachic interpretations for this verse. There's so much on this verse that you can learn, the Gemara learns, but the language of the verse does not fit the context according to them. So you can go to the Gemara and you can find all the halachas that come out of this pasuk. But she says, I don't come here to explain the Gemara. I come here to explain the Pshuta Mikra. I come into a 5-year-old child. From here, the sages expound that many that you may not decide unfavorably for a defendant by a majority created by one judge. Interpret the end of the verse as after the majority to decide, to mean that if those judges voting that the defendant is guilty outnumbers those voting that the defendant is innocent by 2, the verdict is to be decided unfavorably according to their majority opinion. And it has to be 2 when it comes lahates, you have to at least two against. It cannot be only one, especially to a verdict of capital punishment. The text speaks of capital cases, regard to the death penalty. Note that the monetary cases, of course, requires a majority only by one judge. Because the monetary cases, it's three judges. Two guys are disagreeing, two rabbis are disagreeing. The third one will be the majority. It'll be 2 against 1. So you don't have to have more than one judge that will disagree. In a capital, you have to have 2 judges. Note that the monetary guides in the middle of the verse, Leisana al Div, the rabbis interpret like Leisana al Div, you shall not speak up against a master, meaning that we may not differ with the greatest of the court. Therefore, in capital cases, the judges come a roll call from the side, meaning from the aspirants, the smallest. The way to set up the bezdin in the court, in the high court, or there were 2 kind of courts when it came to capital punishment. Either was the high court, 70 judges, 71s, and there's the lower court, 23 judges. So the way they sat was the oldest judge stood on one side, and the newer judge came on the other side. And that when a judge would leave, they would add another judge to the right side. And it came to the court, and they came to vote on what's the judgment. They would start from the lowest, from the earliest judge, because they didn't want him to be influenced by the oldest judge. So if the oldest judge is going to say his opinion, so the guy all the way to the right, who's just walked into the court, is going to be intimidated. He's not going to go against the chief justice. He's not going to go against the guy who runs the court. So therefore, you have to go to the youngest judge. You got to hear his opinion first. And then you hear the opinion of the elderly judges as we go on the road. So that's how they started. That's how they used to do it, to not to intimidate anybody. Anybody should be intimidated to say his opinion. So self-understood, if you just got into the court, you're a young guy, and there's an elderly judge, you're not going to want to say an opinion against him if you heard his opinion. And that's how the Chachamim established the way they ran the court. According to words of the sages, this interpretation of the verse, you shall not follow the majority for evil to condemn a person to death because of one judge, by whom those who declared a person to death because of one judge. And you shall not speak up against the master to deviate his words, because the yud riv, meaning quarrel, is missing. They interpret rav. Rav means a master. Go against the master. Don't put the younger judge to go against the rav, and therefore let him say it first, and he won't go against the rav. He won't go against the master of the court. After majority is decided, significant that there is, however, a majority after whom you decide the verdict when, and those judges declare the defendant guilty outnumber by 2 those who declare him innocent. Since it says you shall follow the majority for evil, I deduce that you shall follow them, the majority, for good. Here the rabbis deduce in capital cases, decide through a majority of 1 for acquittal, and through a majority of 2 for conviction. That's the way Chachamim learned this whole pasuk. Go look up in the Gemara Sanhedrin. Onkelos renders this verse: don't refrain from teaching what appears to you concerning a judgment. Hebrew wording, according to the Targum, is interpreted as follows: you shall not respond concerning a quarrel by turning away. If someone asks you something concerning the law, do not answer by turning aside and distancing yourself from a quarrel, but judge it honestly. Judges gonna say, I'm not getting involved. The rabbi should not say, I'm not getting involved in this issue. If you have an opinion, you have to say your opinion, but judge it honestly. I however say, differing from the rabbis and Onkelos, that the verse should be according to its text. I am going to go, Rashi says, not according to Onkelos. I'm not going to translate this according to the Gemara. I'm going to translate it according to the simple meaning. And this is how he translates the verse. If you see a wicked people pervert justice, don't say they are many. you see wickedness happening around you, don't join, don't get part of the crowd. Simple meaning of the verse. Just because it's majority, if you know that it's wrong, step aside. That's number one, simple thing. Do not respond concerning a lawsuit to follow. Means simple. If litigant asks you about a corrupt judgment, don't answer him concerning the lawsuit with an answer that follows those many to pervert judgment from its true ruling. Tell the judgment as it is. That means if there's a judgment comes out and people are trying to pervert the judgment, they're trying to change the judgment that was given out, and they start to change the wording of the judgment. The Rebbe would have said many times, what I say, don't pervert my words. Don't give translation to my words. Right? Everybody's trying to manipulate me. Everybody's trying to tell me what I meant and what I really meant, and what I said was not what I meant. So people try to do that also. They try to take a court case that there's a judgment and start to manipulate what the judgment is. The judgment is the judgment, is the expression of the Gemara. The Gemara's expression is, let the iron hang on the neck of many. Meaning, let many bear the punishment for their perverse judgment. If people want a perverse judgment, they want to manipulate the judgment, they want to change the judgment, they want to pull it to their side and change the actual meaning of the court and of the halacha, that's their choice. Let it hang upon them. And we see that throughout history, that even the majority could have perverse the Torah, transform the Torah, and they have majority in a way. Doesn't make a difference. Let it hang upon them. Torah is clear, halacha is clear. We a yid should follow halacha and not manipulate halacha, and not manipulate the words of the Torah, manipulate the words of the law. And therefore, even though it's a majority, people that might do that, a yid follows halacha, a Jew follows Jewish law, even if he might be the minority. Verse number 3, neither shall you glorify a poor man in his lawsuit. Now she says, you shall not bestow honor upon him by deciding his disfavor in a lawsuit. You say, I have a rachmanis on the poor, this is to a judge. I have a rachmanis, this rich man is trying to get 100. What does the rich man need to $100? I have a rachmanis on this poor man, I'll make sure he wins. What is the rich man going to lose by $100? So they'll have to give him $100. You're not allowed to do that. If the poor man loses, he loses. Verse number 4. You come upon your enemy's bull, or his donkey. So yeah, that's lost. You imagine you're walking down the street, you see this guy's bull, you realize, that belongs to Shimon. But I don't like Shimon. You should realize that this is not, when these are mitzvahs. These are mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are not suggestion. A mitzvah is not about being a decent person. It's not about doing the right thing even. A mitzvah is a mitzvah. That means if I see somebody's lost object, that he's my enemy. I have a mitzvah. If I walk past it, I did an aveda. I didn't do a mitzvah. It's not over here. Be a mensch. No, everybody should be a mensch. It's a mitzvah. We should know that in general. And that's when it comes to these laws that are human nature. I see my enemy's thing. So overcome yourself. No, the Torah obligates you that you need to do this. You need to stop and pick up this lost object and give it back to him, even though you don't like him. You get a mitzvah. You get the mitzvah. And if you don't do it, then not that you're just not a nice person, you didn't do a mitzvah. So it's an obligation. A mitzvah is an obligation. Verse number 5, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kisira Chamer say Nach again. Torah wants to tell you, because when you do it for a friend, you might not do it l'shem mitzvah. You do it for a friend. Oh, I'm a mensch, I'm a nice person. They'll do it for me. Over here, the Torah is talking about a mitzvah. It's not about helping your friend. It's about doing a mitzvah. And I should do it for my friend also because of a mitzvah. But it comes to a sainacha, for my enemy, I can understand that's a mitzvah. So if I see the enemy's donkey, he's under the burden of his weight. And I'll say, you know what? Why should I help him? He's my enemy. He wouldn't help me. So why would I help him? The Torah says again, nature would you say, no, I'm not going to help him. It's a mitzvah. You have a mitzvah. You have a mitzvah to help him. As he says, this serves an expression of perhaps, which one, the form meaning is king is used. This the meaning will perhaps see a donkey on this bird. That's it. So it's a this is again a question. You're going to not help him. Aziva is an expression to help. Similarly, the expression of Yeyaziv, he helped. As the Rashi goes on, they fill with the earth, the strength. Will you perhaps say in your heart, these nations are numerous? Will you perhaps say so? It's like an expression in the Hebrew, and in the Gemara term, bit me as a question. But logically, our rabbis interpret the verse as follows: if you see, you may refrain, meaning sometimes you may refrain from helping somebody. And sometimes you must help. So the Gemara says that the bitmia is actually not just a question, will you help? Sometimes you don't have to help. Sometimes you don't have to help. How can you be judged? An elder who finds beneath the dignity of an older donkey, how may you refrain? So if you're an older person, how can you help the person? You cannot help the person. Or for example, you may refrain. The animal belongs to a Gentile, burden belongs to an Israel, you may refrain. There are certain times you may refrain. Also, that if the person says, you do the mitzvah, right? I see my enemy with a donkey overloaded, and he says, oh, you have a mitzvah, I'm not, you take care of it, and I'll just sit on the side. Also, you have to help him. That means the person himself has to help himself. There's so many more things we learn from this. In general, we learn from this also, we see a person that's under his burden, his own burden. He's the donkey. You have to help a person that you see that is struggling under his burden. The Baal Shem Tov's interpretation of this. A fanik mastei to unload the donkey. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya today. And the truth is, the Tanya today, this we're always still in chapter 25 of Tanya. The Tanya today fits into the Chumash of the day, because the Tanya today, it goes out, the Baal Shem Tov translates the last verse of the Tanya, Yisira Chamer Senacha, Revetz Tachas Masai. Why does the Torah keep on saying the word Chamer? If you look at the Torah, it likes Chamer a lot. The Torah is very into the Chamer, into the donkey. And one of the Baal Shem Tov learned it, that it means Chamer is chumrius. Chamer is my donkey, my chumrius, my physicality. When I see that my nefesh of Bahamas, who I seemingly I hate, and he hates me seemingly, I should help him. Azav tazivim. Baal Shem Tov says, shouldn't negate your nefesh of Bahamas, your chumrius, your density, your physicality, as we learned yesterday in Tanya, that my nefesh of Bahamas makes me heavy. My animalistic soul, my Yetzer Hara makes me heavy. I have a lot of burdens. It burdens me with all physical things and all physical responsibilities. I need to help it. And that's what we're going to learn today. The Alter Rebbe says, the Chomas HaYetzer is to transform it, to skafia v'sapra. There's an obligation on a yid to skafia, to change. Go mechama with it. Don't just ignore it. Don't just walk away from your donkey that might even be your enemy, seemingly. That's the Baal Shem Tov learned the last pasuk. Go out and help him. Go out and transform him. Go out and control him. Don't just ignore him. And as the Alter Rebbe will explain in Tanya, you can't ignore him because he's going to be with you your whole life. You're not going to get rid of your nefesh abamis, your animalistic soul. And if you're not going to deal with it, if you're just going to ignore it, you're just going to push it under the rug, as they say, you're ultimately never going to change anything. As the verse ends, you shall surely help him. You need to help him. You need to take your chamor, you need to take your donkey, your nefesh abamis, your density, your gashmias, and try to harness it. Try to harness it for kedusha. So this is what the Alter Rebbe says. God continues in Tanya, in the 25th chapter. He says, in similar manner, that entails a great effort, where one must struggle with his evil inclination and the shenanigans and the trickiness of my evil inclination. Which seeks to cool the ardor of man's soul, claiming that he ought not to dispute his money in the case of charity, or his health in matters of requiring physical exertion. So the Nefesh Bahamis says, think about yourself. Why are you giving time to learning? You're not going to gain anything out of it. Why are you giving stock? You're going to lose money from it. Your Nefesh Bahamis tries to challenge you in anything that in Kedusha tries to challenge you. So you have this struggle in Yiddishkeit. What is the obligation of a person? It is very easy for the person to resist. That's why we have your chamor. Resist. You know what the Gemara says? A chamor, a donkey, is even hot, is cold in the month of Tammuz. The Rebbe always brings this Gemara down. What is the meaning of donkey? Is always hot, cold, even in the month of Tammuz. Coldness is indifference. That's also a struggle of a nefesh. That's one of the tricks of nefesh. It makes you indifferent. Not important to me. Not that important to me. And that's why it's hard for me to overcome things, because it's not important to me. I'm indifferent to it. So it's not important to me. That's my chumrius. My chumrius is my donkey. A chamor is that it pushes things that are simply not important to me. And I need to challenge this Yetzirah. I need to make it important to me. It is important to me. It's very close to a person when he'll consider deeply in his heart that when he will conquer his nature, it will, you're going to overcome your chumrius. You're going to overcome. You're going to win this indifference. You're going to overcome this indifference. The last they say, mamish, and Pasha do the opposite. Do the total opposite of the desire of my evil inclination, of my Yetzirah. And that's extremely close to you, because the Yetzirah is close to you. My chumrius, my density is extremely close to me. And I can overcome it. Self-understood. Overcoming a taiva, overcoming a desire is much easier than giving my life up. And if I'm ready to give my life up, so to overcome a desire, not to have indifference, not to do something out of the physicality of the thing, but to being a little bit of godliness and everything, that is so difficult. And when it comes to giving up your life, God forbid, a Jew is ready to give up his life not to separate from God's unity. That is easy. I feel if he shot even for a moment. To bow down to an idol is easy. To give up your life, that's easy. Not to bow down to an idol. So as mentioned earlier, every Jew would sacrifice his life rather than practice Avodah Zarah, since he knows that it represents separation from God. So certainly, if I'm ready to give up my life, not to bow down to an idol, he ought to expect lovingly and willingly. Now, it's interesting in general that the Alter Rebbe keeps on saying this over and over again, because self-understood that we need to convince ourselves in this concept. We all know this concept. We all believe in this concept. Well, none of us will worship Avodah Zarah, and we would give up our life not to do worship Avodah Zarah. We all know that. Thank God we're not challenged that. Because we would do that. So we just have to convince ourselves to overcome a taiva to overcome a concept that has nothing to do with kedusha, that has only to do with the tightness of myself. I have the capability to overcome it, and it's very close to me because I know right now that I would be most nefesh not to do Avodah Zarah. And I said times before that we all have a red line. It doesn't have to be Avodah Zarah when it says Avodah Zarah, because that's the ultimate sin, in the Torah, the three cardinal sins of Avodah Zarah. Shvichas Damim, we know we would kill anybody, and the concept of immorality. But we all have a red line in our lives, and what do we say? We never do this. Never eat treif. Never do eat pig. A lot of people, they eat treif, but they're never eat pig. It's like that's the red line. So we all have red lines. So if the question is, why you have a red line? Why is the red line there? Why is the line there? Your line is there because you feel that on that line you're going to be cut off from Yiddishkeit. You're going to be cut off from God. So bring the line other places. Why are you deciding to be the line there? And that's the Mishnah. That's what the Mishnah says, that a person should not evaluate a mitzvah or an aveda, because actually you don't know the schad of a mitzvah in the Torah. And the schad of not doing an aveda. You might know the punishment, but you don't know the schad. Now here the Alter Rebbe is talking about the schad, the reward. And that is what's the greatest reward? Schad mitzvah, schad aveda. The greatest reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. And that's the connection to God. And the greatest punishment of an aveda is the aveda itself. It's not the punishment that you get later. It's the aveda itself, the disconnection of God. So therefore, if I understand this concept clearly, then I would never do a sin, and I would run to do every mitzvah, have a ratzon divine mitzvah. Because if I would understand this clearly, self-understood, my red line and my whatever line I have should be that I want connection with the Eibishter. I want a connection with God. And that's it. And I don't want a disconnection to God. So this is the twofold argument over here. Firstly, performing mitzvahs actually binds man to God, as opposed to refraining from idol, which merely prevents separation from Him. Secondly, so that's the greatness of a mitzvah. Not doing a Veda stops a person from separation, but doing a mitzvah creates connection. Secondly, the bond effect by a mitzvah is eternal one, as opposed to temporary separating from God. So when a person does a sin, he comes separate from God. We can do tshuva, which tshuva will reunite him. But once I make a connection to God, a mitzvah, which is Ava, once I create a connection to God, that connection is everlasting. That connection accounts an everlasting connection between me and HaKadosh Baruch. Now, if one would sacrifice his life to refrain from idolatry, how much more so he ought to accept whatever hardships are entailed by fulfilling a mitzvah. If you're ready not to do an aveda, give up your life for an aveda that you can do tshuva to rectify, how much more you should be meis nefesh and do every mitzvah, because every connection I do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everlasting. And can never be broken. The mitzvah can never be broken. Every mitzvah I do, the tzedakah that I give today is a mitzvah that will be for me forever. Never can be taken away from me. Nobody can take away a mitzvah from me. No Aveda can break a mitzvah. That's why the Mishnah says that afilu chayt Yisrael, even sinners of Jews, are malay mitzvahs kerimen. They are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Because nothing can break that mitzvah. Any mitzvah that they have done is for them forever. And therefore, if we're ready to run away from Aveda, we should run to a mitzvah. Because we should realize that not only is the mitzvah is a connection between me and God, but the mitzvah is an everlasting connection between me. How much more should we have to accept whatever? And therefore we should run, and it doesn't make a difference if there's hardship. So therefore, if your nefesh Bahamas tells you, oh, there's hardships, doing a mitzvah is going to take away your money, it's going to take away your time, it's going to, oh, you're going to, so what? So what? Why wouldn't I want to acquire something that will be forever? Why wouldn't I want to connect to God? And this connection that I connect to God at this moment through this mitzvah will be forever. That's the way you need. That's the way I need to talk to my nefesh Bahamas. That's the way the Baal Shem Tov learned the last pasuk of the Torah today. Ozev tazev ima. You need to talk to my chumrius. I need to explain my nefesh Bahamas this. I need to explain myself, and your nefesh Bahamas will understand it, because your nefesh Bahamas also wants good. It wants good. You're explaining him. You're talking to him in his language. Your nefesh Elikis doesn't make a difference. He wants God. It doesn't make a difference. Gain, no gain. He doesn't care. He wants godliness. He has a connection of godliness, and therefore he has no issue. Nefesh Bahamas has issues, and the issues that talk to me. It's going to take time. It's going to fringe on me. It's going to obligate me. Why wouldn't I want this obligation? Why wouldn't I want to run for this obligation? Because this obligation, this mitzvah, that's going to be hard for me to do. Maybe it's going to take my money. It's going to take my effort. It's going to take my time. But it's everlasting. The mitzvah is everlasting. It's never ending. Alter Rebbe goes now to explain the mitzvah affects how mitzvahs affect the bond with God. It's in his body, or by fulfilling God's will through this service. So that's what a mitzvah does. When I do a mitzvah, I'm revealing the innermost will. The will of God is being revealed at this present time. This revelation of this mitzvah, the light of God that is being revealed in this mitzvah, which is the will of God in this mitzvah that I'm doing right now, is manifest in this world, and it's not even manifest in a hidden way. As explained in chapter 23 of Tanya, the mitzvah represents the innermost will of God, the Ratzon Elyon. And when one performs them, this will stands completely revealed. Especially if you do the mitzvah l'shma. You're doing it because the Eibishter, like you're right, because you're overcoming your Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Hara is telling you shouldn't do it. Your evil inclination is telling you push it off. What you can do tomorrow. Why are you doing it today? So therefore, I say no. I'm going to overcome the Yetzer Hara. I'm going to either do a skafia, I'm going to overcome it, or I'm going to transform it. And then Kishain Shum has to pun him. I'm doing it because of the Ratzon of the Eibishter. Azai ein davar nifra klal. Then there's no separation between me and this godly concept. Lias yeshud of atzmi, that it becomes independent and separate on its own. As explained again in chapter 22 and 24 in Tanya, no created being can possibly consider itself separate from God unless the divine will is concealed from it. Since the inner aspect of the will of God stands revealed in one's performance of a mitzvah, It does not permit any sense of separation. So therefore, if I do this mitzvah because I overcame my Yitzhak, that's the point of here. I do this mitzvah because I overcame my Yitzhak. Then I'm revealing the revelation of God in this mitzvah, a revelation of the Ratzon of the Eibishter. I'm revealing the true aspect of what God wanted in this mitzvah, that God wanted it. And I'm ready to be Meisei Nefesh for what God wants. And when I do that, thus his soul, meaning the soul of the person performing the mitzvah, he had enough kiss, both the divine soul, Bachayunis, and the animating soul, and their garments, right? So not only your godly soul, but your animal soul. At that moment that I subjugated it, I overcame it. And I did what was right. I did what God wanted me to do. Become unity with the ultimate unity. Again, now to Rebbe explained to us the concept of true unity. True unity is not is the concept of where we unite with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Unity of God, as the Rambam explains, that no unity in this world but the unity of God. That's why there's an expression. There's no true ben chayden, no true unity, there's no true freedom. Because if I don't unite myself with God, I'm under the donkey, so to say. I'm under the churmis of the world. That's why the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, you have two choices. Either accepting yourself the yoke of heaven, or accepting yourself the yoke of the world. And that's our choice. Either to connect to my nefesh elokis, or to connect to my nefesh Bahamas. That's my two options. There's nothing in between. There's no man's land in this situation. Either I accept myself the yoke of heaven, and I do things because the Eibishter wants me to do it. And even my physical things I do because the Eibishter wants me to do it. And that's what, again, I'm just going back to the Chamer, and I come to the donkey and I say, no, you're not going to be burdened by only physicality. You're going to be burdened by spirituality also. And you're going to have an equal burden. And actually the burden of spirituality will actually take off the burdens of physicality, because I'm going to take off the burden of the world from me. I'm going to do the work of the world, but it's not going to be a burden to me. My burden is the burden of godliness. And the world is there to help my burden of godliness. And that's what I have to do. That's when you have transformation. We're not running away from the world. We're actually enhancing our involvement in the world. It's not a burden for me, the world. My burden is the burden of God and the burden of Torah mitzvahs. That's where I'm burdened by. And that's where I put my effort and my entire existence. And I need self-nesud gashmius. I need all the aspects of the physical world to help me in this burden. Because if I don't have parnasa, if I don't have a livelihood, if I don't sheish shalom tavit, I won't have the capability of giving myself over to total to godliness. But it's a secondary concept. It's there for the concept of my spiritual burden. Well, that's when you transform yourself. That's when I transform myself. At that moment where I can do this mitzvah, when that becomes my life, that becomes my true existence, the Torah that I learn, the mitzvahs that I do it because the Eibishter wants me to do it. And I'm doing it to mamala ratzon havaya, to fulfill the desire of my godly soul, to fulfill the desire of God. At that moment, it becomes you become one with the Eibishter. You become one with God. You become one with your neshama, your godly soul, and they all become one with the infinite light of God. That's what he says: be united with perfect unity, with the divine will, and with infinite light of God. Blessed be, as explained above. And that's Kariv Eilecha Adava Ma'id. This concept is very close to you. This concept is not something far from you because your nefesh elikis, my nefesh elikis, my nefesh abahamis, and we know the struggles of the world is right over here, right within me, and that's all I got to do. Wash it, to not walk away from it, to not deny it, but actually to change it, to go out machama with it in every situation that I have, to go out to war, so to say, with it, to tell my nefesh abahamis, to tell my animalistic soul, no, I'm doing this because the Eibishter wants me to do this. I'm doing this because God wants me to do this. I'm trying to fulfill the will of God. And every moment I feel the will of God, I create an everlasting connection. There's no greater concept in the world. All my work and all my accomplishments in the world doesn't last forever. I know that you live from paycheck to paycheck, so the last month's paycheck is gone. It doesn't last forever. Nothing in this physical world that I acquire lasts forever. But if I do a mitzvah, and especially if I do a mitzvah because I'm trying to connect to the Eibishter, that mitzvah lasts forever. Nobody can take away that mitzvah from you. Nobody, not even you, can take away that mitzvah. It means if you pass the shalom or you just do Avedis, you can't take away the mitzvahs from him. And that's why, as I said before, Melei mitzvahs, the Mishnah, the Pasuk says, Melei mitzvahs kerimen. We are all full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate. Because the mitzvahs that Baruch Hashem we do on a constant basis never goes away from us. Even if you did a sin, never goes away from you. And is always part of you. Therefore, acquire more mitzvahs. Acquire every day. Don't push away a mitzvah. The Gemara says, according to the month of Adar, one of the things you learn, whoever reaches out with his hand, give him. Don't, it's an opportunity. It's a mitzvah. Oh, but I don't think it's a mitzvah. You're not doing it because you think the person deserves it, doesn't deserve it. You're doing a mitzvah. And that mitzvah could be a penny, it could be a dollar, it could be whatever. That mitzvah will never, ever be taken. Oh, the famous story of I think it's Sir Montefiore, that they asked him how much money, challenged how much money he had, and he said, whatever. He said, I have $1 million. I forgot the number he gave. And they challenged him, said, you have $1 million, they have $10 million. So what do you mean you have $1 million? So he said, I gave $1 million to tzedakah. Everything else can be taken away from me. Everything else can be here today and not here tomorrow. But the $1 million that I gave to tzedakah, nobody can take away from me. That mitzvah, that $1 million is mine forever. Nobody can take away this $1 million from me. And that's the beauty of a mitzvah, that nobody can take it away from you. And therefore, the Mishnah again says, I have a rotz l'davar mitzvah. So we understand the Mishnah, pick up, it says, run. That's what he says in Shulchan Aruch. The first thing in Shulchan Aruch, it says, get up like a lion, be swift like a deer, be as light as an eagle, lots of the saying of to run to do a mitzvah. I should run, because every mitzvah that I do. And that's why a mitzvah is Ava, the concept of Ava Hashem, love of God. All mitzvahs I say is the aspect of love of God. I should run because I should realize that this is a love relationship between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that can never be broken. That can be never taken away from me. Because it's nitzchias. It's the ratzon of the Eibishter, it's the will of God, it's nitzchias, it's everlasting. And that's the beauty of this. And even my nefesh abahamis, my animalistic soul, my chamer, my donkey, that's indifferent, will even be inspired by this. Because even your nefesh abahamis wants to have something that's he understands also the difference between something that's limited and something that's unlimited. And we should run to the unlimited more and give ourselves to the unlimited than to the limited. That ends the time of the day. Today is the 28th day of the month. The Tillim is chapter 135 to chapter 139. You do those chapters, you do the chitas of the day. Wish you all a good day. May Hashem continue tomorrow, 8 o'clock, learn the chitas of the day. Have a wonderful, beautiful, happy